So we're back to continue our conversations. David here from Pyramid Yoga and Marcus from Elemental Living, talking about world situations, health and wealth and attitudes and life in general.
And how to navigate it and how to
Yeah.
make it all a happy experience. The last time we talked a lot about the fact that we're sensory beings. Gary Zukav he wrote a book called The Seat of the Soul, and he refers to it as the five sensory being. And people who are living in the five senses are having just a physical experience in life. And this world has been designed to entertain those senses, which is a world of distraction.
Yeah, you're talking about civilized world. I mean, the natural world too is there with all the beauty of nature, which is attracting us and feeding us and everything else. So there's an interaction there. But that's kind of been overcome by modern civilization and progress, and we have screens everywhere, music everywhere, and um, we've stepped into a consumer society, totally out of touch with the natural, peaceful way of living.
Yeah, completely ruled by technology and superficial distraction, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, over distraction, and so much of it that it's overwhelming. And we talked last time about the amount of sensory information coming into us all the time, and your brain having to process all this information keeps the mind in this perpetual state of blah blah blah.
Yeah. And if we're living life as that five sensory being, it's it's limiting because we are so much more than that. We're so many more dimensions, right?
Yeah. I mean, the simplest dimension is you can be daydreaming, or you can have a dream at night. And this is, what is this dream that we're having at night? You're seeing it, you're having the experience, but your body is just asleep. So this is beyond the five senses of the body. There's another experience happening in your mind, in your consciousness. And the Eastern philosophies are all going into explore this aspect of yourself. What's beyond normal living with your eyes open, functioning in the world? And this can take us into this multi-dimensional experience of the human reality, which is so much more than just five senses.
Just what we can touch and feel. I mean, the whole premise of science is to basically identify what is physically identifiable, and so we're stuck in this place where if we can't touch it and feel it, people have trouble understanding that it exists, right?
Yeah.
So
I'll believe it when I see it.
I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah. So the next perception that we have would be the mind's eye, would be the sixth sense.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that we work with yoga and breath work, right?
Yeah, yeah. And the world of the chakras, and the sixth chakra, Ajna chakra, is the sixth sense, and it's the same one that you're experiencing your dreams with. And the dreams are a gateway to a greater dimension of reality, which is a bigger spectrum of the whole electromagnetic ocean that our normal senses are not picking up on. So it brings us into a multidimensional universe.
And it's funny because the same person that will say, if you can't touch it, you can't prove it that way physically, they understand. They'll say to someone, for instance, follow your vision. Well, the vision is from the mental, or from this other place, this other dimension, right? Because what is it? It's imagination. It's a vision that is not part of this physical reality. So how do we get people to better understand the fact that we're these multi-dimensional beings, and that we can access something much greater than just this physical plane.
Yeah, how to get them into that. When you're in a world of distractions, when the distractions are all based on the normal senses. So getting people to turn inward and go into meditative states is somewhat of a challenge. And then on top of that challenge is the fact that people are not healthy to begin with. They're not in a good enough condition. They're concerned with their health issues with their body. They don't feel that good. They don't feel motivation or so many other problems, which if we want to get into the physiology of it, what we were talking about a little bit earlier was this whole, our cellular metabolism, 50 trillion cells in the average human being that are all, every cell is an individual unit. It has consciousness, it has sense of a feeling, it has all these different processes going on, and they work in communication with each other. And when they are happy and functional, we feel happy and functional.
Mm-hmm.
But when they are not functional, and so much of that comes back to the fact that they're not getting what they need. Either the nutrition is not good enough, not real, or main thing that you and I both teach is about the breathing and the fact that they're not getting enough oxygen. Every one of these 50 trillion cells in your body needs oxygen all the time to continue functioning.
Yeah.
So think of how many trillions of molecules of oxygen you're breathing in and exhaling the carbon dioxide. There are 50 trillion cells, and the way they communicate is through chemical messengers called neuropeptides. And in studies physiologically of how things are working, they see that when the cell is not getting enough oxygen, it puts out, it has the sensation that it's suffocating, which it is, and it puts out a panic signal in a neuropeptide that spreads out and sends messages all the way to the lungs and to the heart and to everything to try and get more oxygen because it's suffocating. You got 1 trillion of these in one area of your body that are suffocating as such, and you start to feel anxiety, which is a natural reaction to your suffocating.
Yeah. So that, the idea that the cells that make up an entity, the cells that make up a being, if the cells are all healthy, then the being is healthy.
Yeah.
If there are 6 cells within that system, then that being doesn't feel right. And the reason I just framing it that way is because one of the things that I've dealt with a lot, we see this all the time, is people feel they're not getting enough air. Like I get this a lot in our workshops, right?
Yeah.
Where what is the sensation that makes you not feel good? Why are you not feeling, healthy and perfect? And people will say, I just feel like I can't get enough air. And of course, that's one of the things that put me on my path of helping people breathe and breathe deeper and to apply the yogic breathing techniques, because one of the things that people were saying is, I'm not getting enough air, right?
Yeah.
And the answer is, you're not.
Yeah, it's a simple truth.
You know?
You're perceiving something that's accurate.
So all those cells that are suffocating is saying, I need something. Oxygen is actually one of the answers, right?
It is the biggest answer.
Just breathe
like
deeper.
I said, it's 50 trillion cells all need the oxygen to function properly, and if you're only breathing with 1/10 of your lungs, somewhere there's not going to be enough oxygen to go around. So some of the cells in this gland or that organ or this muscle are going to become stressed, anxious, and that's what you are going to end up feeling.
Yeah. And when I start with groups, especially groups that never worked with, that are being introduced to deep breathing, like when we start with take a deep breath, they literally take a deep breath within the 10% of the lung that they're using, right?
Yeah.
The lungs they're using. It's just shallow. I can't believe
see that
it.
all the time because I'm always teaching people how to breathe in yoga classes, etc. so many people don't even know. They think they're taking a deep breath, like you said.
Yeah.
It's in that 10%.
Yeah.
And showing them that actually your diaphragm can go down and you're pulling the air into the bottom of your lungs. Your ribs can move out. And so many people have lost those abilities, partly due to stress, to lack of awareness, lack of consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and training them to feel their body and feel how much you can expand your lungs. And people go, wow. But that comment comes up, I don't feel like I'm getting enough air.
Mm-hmm.
That's because you haven't been.
And you're not.
But this is changeable.
Yes.
It's easily changeable.
Yeah. Reestablishing the full use of the lungs is actually something that takes effort. It takes an effort. A person has to do it, and they
Yeah.
have to work it because they have to, get parts of the lungs opened up again that have not been used, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And it's work. And when they haven't been used, not only on the inside, your lungs haven't been pumping air in and out, so they fill up with mucus and different things, and then bacteria move into that mucus, and it becomes a lung infection, and then you got to try and cough it out. Which, by the way, coughing is a
is
natural
natural.
reflex
Mhm.
for the lungs to clean themselves out. That's the
Yeah.
only way they can clean out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the pollution goes from the lungs into the bloodstream and goes through your body. So
Yeah.
you
The
need
whole function of mucus is to wrap itself around toxins and get them out of the body.
yeah,
And so we have
toxins and dust and everything else,
Mhm.
which is coming from the air we're breathing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're designed with this natural process of cleaning things out.
Yeah. And then that's what happens a lot with people who just start deep breathing is they'll go into these coughing fits. And
Yeah.
I'll explain, well, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's because your body needs to get rid of stuff, and it's a healing crisis type thing where things will get worse before they get better.
Yeah. Yeah, you become more conscious of the problem, and then you can do something about it.
And then you have to do something about it. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
hmm So let's go back into the fluids of the body and the lymphatic system that we were talking about earlier. That this is the fluid that's, because we are 85% water. Our lymphatic fluid is mostly water
Mm.
with some other components in it. But this is everywhere in our body, and it's in the bloodstream. It leaks out of the bloodstream, goes into interstitial fluid, which is the same fluid by another name, and then finds its way back into lymphatic vessels and gets moved up by our movement, brought back up into the chest, and goes back into the circulation of the heart and the blood. This is a cycle. And in that cycle, it's picking up pollution and debris and toxins, and if there's any bacteria or virus, it will pick that up too and move it back in through the lymph nodes that will scan and look at whatever's in the lymph and
Mhm.
send signals to appropriately adjust body chemistry or send out antibodies or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just goes back. This circuit is lost in our modern civilization because we're not moving around and doing things
Mm-hmm.
in our normal human behavior. We're sitting so much and only moving our fingers, and the rest of the body is sitting, waiting. And the fluids in our muscles are hardly moving, and all of this is really bad for healthy living.
Yeah.
Everything needs to circulate.
And that's the thing, right? Is that the lymphatic system, which is actually has more liters of fluid in it than our blood circulation system, has no pump, or
Yeah.
the pump is in fact
Is us.
movement.
Is movement.
We
yeah.
have to move, right? And so the stretching postures, the asanas in yoga are about moving that energy, moving that fluid, so that our system can operate.
Yeah.
Because as you mentioned, the lymphatic system is sweeping through our system
Yeah.
and cleaning us up.
Yeah.
But if we're not moving,
Yeah.
then we end up with stagnation all over the place.
The other little role of this lymphatic fluid in the place between the cells, you don't have a blood vessel going between every cell in your body. Okay, there's 50 trillion. You don't have, we have thousands of miles of blood vessels, but it doesn't go everywhere. So the lymphatic fluid takes the oxygen from the blood and delivers it. It's everywhere. In between every cell in your body, there's this wrapping of fluid, lymphatic, and this is the ferryman in between the blood and the cell.
Mm-hmm.
It brings the oxygen to every cell, takes the CO2, brings it back to the bloodstream to go back to the lungs to be eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we've got movement is how this happens. And when we stop moving for a long period of time, it stagnates.
It stagnates, and then now we look at people's bodies, and that's what it looks like. It looks like
Yeah.
a lot of stagnation in a lot of different parts of the body, right?
Yeah.
And people get overweight, they get less flexible, they can't move, and so the movement is key. And then to make that movement more effective, deeper breathing and taking in more oxygen is the other factor, right?
Yeah. Just deeper breathing, when you consider movement of the diaphragm, the ribs, and the upper whole chest rising and falling, that's a lot of movement that is going to be circulating this lymphatic fluid and helping the blood to move better through all of your core,
Mm-hmm.
which contains all of the glands and organs that are keeping you alive and maintaining life's functions. So even if you're only sitting in a chair and you're just doing the breathing, which anyone can do,
Mm-hmm.
not complicated yoga postures.
You don't have to do much
Yeah.
of anything except,
The breathing is the key and the clue, and
be a
it
conscious.
creates circulation
Yeah.
internally.
Yeah. And you're moving. Everything's being moved a little bit, right? All the organs themselves are essentially getting massaged.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, massage is the pressure and release, which is moving all these fluids around.
And that helps the organ and the system itself just to get rid of its garbage, to get rid of its toxins and whatever it is that needs to be moved through to make room for the new cells.
Yeah. So there's another fluid that I want to touch on, and that's the cerebrospinal fluid, which in yoga, there's a lot of bends, right? You're bending the spine this way, that way, you're rotating it and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how we move this fluid. It goes all the way to the bottom of the spine and back up to the brain. It has its own little circulation.
Right.
And in the brain, this fluid picks up oxygen and nutrients that are needed and brings it down to the central nervous system, and then brings back up any toxic materials from rebuilding of nerve cells here or there, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And in yoga, you're providing the oxygen by breathing deep, and then you're bringing the circulation in and circulating this cerebrospinal fluid, which is essential for your brain to be healthy and for the mind-body connection, which is through the whole central nervous system.
Right.
So there's another level of movement, required flexibility in the spine, and basically how things work.
Another level of circulation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we work by working it. We have to move our bodies. That's one of the biggest problems in our society. And one of the things that I share with a lot of people who come to me is you don't have to go into a huge exercise program right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Just get up and move, do a little bit of stretching, and then combine that with some deep breathing. Bring in those belly breaths.
Yeah.
Fill the bottom of the lungs first.
Yeah, even go for a walk. And as you're walking, breathe deep as you're walking. And you're going to do yourself a world of good, and you'll feel it.
Well, I was going to say, in Western society, going for a walk is about the only thing they do.
I got to walk my dog.
and they, unfortunately, they have a pet to go walk. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that makes them walk, right?
Yeah.
It all comes down to discipline, doesn't it? People just aren't willing to put in the work, put in the effort.
Well, it's not part of our educational system, everybody gets sick, and then you just go to the medical to get fixed up, and they give you a pill and whatever it is. And so we don't get the responsibility of, I have to make myself healthy. I have to keep myself healthy, and I do that by moving, breathing, exercising, and it comes down to a lifestyle that incorporates that.
Yeah. No, our education system trains us into counting on someone else to fix us.
Yeah.
That is one of the big challenges of health these days. Is
Well,
it's an
that's-
external fix.
yeah, it's an external fix.
A little bit like going to a mechanic to fix your car.
Yeah. Then we
Um,
got the mechanic fix the car. We have the medical system to fix the physical problems.
mhm.
And then we have the psychiatrists and psychologists to fix the mental problems. And then we have the priests and the rabbis and the clerics to fix our spiritual problems.
Mhm. Yeah.
But none of it is self-reliant. We're not taught about how we actually work and how we
Yeah.
can be connected.
Yeah.
Which brings us back into the higher levels of the chakras and the sixth chakra and the multidimensional universe, and realizing that we dream. We have dreams, and we see things and have experiences in dreams. And this is another level of our reality.
Mhm.
We have experiences
Yeah.
in these dreams, and we can learn things and we can communicate with people and things. And from there into the greater world of the consciousness of the universe, which is part of what is studied in Eastern thought, Eastern philosophy, Eastern religion, which
Mhm.
sometimes isn't religion, it's more understanding how the human reality works
Mhm.
within the universal reality.
Yeah, well, those are the levels that we go to in the science of yoga, borrowing the word science there,
Yeah,
science of mind.
yeah,
But yeah, we were talking about, getting out of going beyond the five sensory being into the other dimensions that we are, and imagination and vision and all those factors in dreaming. Yeah, how many times does a person wake up from a dream where it was so real
yeah,
that their actual physical being in this dimension has got adrenaline flowing through it, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's a reality. So in this concept of the Ajna Chakra, the sixth, the mind element,
mhm.
there's the study of the mind itself and how we have memory, we have imagination, we have, from inspiration to depression, and how all these things are working. And one of the keys is the imagination, which starts with the word image. It's
Image.
a picture.
Mhm.
And I go back to Einstein's little quote of imagination being more important than knowledge. But
Mhm.
we're not taught much about, well, imagination is just you're having a fantasy or a daydream or something. But even all of our technology was imagined. It
Mhm.
didn't just appear. It
Mhm.
came up in someone's mind as a possibility. And let's try and make this thing. Let's try and do this.
Yeah.
So imagination is the key to our whole civilization. It's also the key to us that we haven't applied to ourselves. Imagine yourself in a better state of health,
Mhm.
and your body will react
Mhm.
in a positive way.
Yeah.
And it will tell you, oh, well, we need more oxygen if you want to achieve this. You need better nutrition. So your mind will work for you and cooperate in helping you to achieve a goal of being happier and healthier.
Yeah. It all becomes our ability to listen to our body and hear those messages, right?
Yeah,
And that's one of the disconnections, is people have disconnected from their body, and can't feel that.
can't feel.
Can't
We
feel.
think
Mhm.
so much that we have lost touch with how our body's feeling while we're sitting
Mhm.
there thinking and thinking and thinking about our problems,
Mhm.
and the body's getting more stressed, and the stress makes the thinking get worse,
Yeah.
and we don't make these connections. Hey, go back, take a deep breath, and
Mhm.
a couple of deep breaths can change so much.
So much. I mean, the body, as we've mentioned before, has the sigh that comes along and makes
Yeah.
us sigh. And as I mentioned, it's not the solution, it's a message. It's
Yeah,
just saying, I need more air. The body needs more air. And then we take that to the emotional level of not feeling, and just our spiritual dimension, our this whole emotional dimension, emotion, right? Moving energy. And that's yet another level of disconnection
yeah.
that we have. So deep breathing exercises along with some stretching and moving those lymphatic fluids and getting our body just more in touch with itself
Hmm.
is
And you can do simple techniques of sitting down, breathing deep, and watch how your mind goes into a more positive state. Because we talked about the oxygen, etc. Now, we also mentioned in the last interview about prana, which is the energy that comes along with the breath. And we have different systems. One of them, the olfactory that we smell with, is the key for picking up energy from the air. Now, this energy is called prana in India, it's called chi to the Chinese. In our modern scientific world, we can look at it as it's actually electrons. And we know, and science can measure, that a number of, the majority in fact, of the oxygen atoms and molecules in the jungle have extra electrons. And when we breathe in through the nose, those electrons go directly into the brain as a kind of a charge. It's an electrical charge. It's the same charge electricity is made of. Okay, it's electrons.
Right.
We absorb it. We run on this energy. We call it prana. And there's a whole understanding of how it's moving in different ways. It's creating these vortexes, these wheels of energy that are really the quantum fields. And just by breathing deep in the jungle, you're getting this. And it creates the sensation, the feeling of optimism, inspiration and optimism. Just a few minutes of deep breathing, consciously deep breathing in this environment, and you start to feel your thoughts become more optimistic. Your feeling is better. All part of that is to do with the cells now having enough oxygen, but then the mind is getting enough prana and energy to build on that, and they support each other in this higher state of being.
And it's right in the word, right? Inspiration.
Yeah.
To inspire.
Yeah. There you have it. And you got the same thing with a dual meaning of it means to breathe in and it means to gain something mentally.
That's right.
Yeah. And they're connected just in the word itself.
The multidimensional definition of inspire, and absolutely. I encourage people to, one of the ways of getting those extra electrons is negative ions.
Yeah.
Right. And so waterfalls, rapids, crashing ocean waves.
Yeah.
You know, the forest.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing in nature. You got this movement. A little stream bubbling down over the rocks and the crashing ocean waves. The water's being moved and the electrons are
being released.
And
we're capturing them.
Yeah. And we're designed to live off them, just like the symbiotic relationship we have with the trees. We give them carbon dioxide. They take the carbon and give us back the oxygen. And they use the carbon to make carbohydrates that we can eat later. And then, so we got this exchange.
It's a great relationship that unfortunately is not being respected by everyone everywhere. But
take down the trees and put up a parking lot.
Hey everyone, Marcus here again. So another conversation with David. We went a little bit technical into the function of the body and how it takes care of itself. The modifications of the mind is where we're headed next. Next conversation we'll talk a lot more about the mental factors and what goes on in our minds and how we get stuck in the mental constructs. But this one here, understanding how the body functions so that we can in turn better take care of ourselves, is what we dug deep into there. So looking forward to sharing some more. See you soon.